Welcome to Bussin' with the Boys, Newman.
So, there's one can of worms that we probably should open that you probably didn't tell them.
What's that?
What's up?
That I went to Michigan State.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Oh, I forgot.
I just got to make sure I talk slow so you can remember everything.
Hey,
I'm a little
solid
tired.
comeback.
I love when you made Vrabel point up to the hail.
Oh,
that was
the hail
fucking
thing?
awesome.
Yeah,
That
man.
was awesome.
We got to make sure people, if you go in the bus, man, you're in Cornhusker territory. You're in
I just
Michigan
wanted to give you
territory,
extra
baby.
ammunition. I was terrified
No,
enough
hey,
already. Now
it's not ammunition, man. It's kind of just like, welcome, glad to have you.
Hey, easy,
we'll
Newman.
get you-
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Hey,
We'll get you a
just
couple
relax.
coloring books. You'll be fine. All
Aaron,
right,
fix
little
his
bus with
mic
the
if you need
boys.
to, Aaron. He's over here like about to rip it out of the fucking bus. Have to get that black card out. They can pay for it. Yo, it's raining outside. It's storming.
That close? Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't fucking matter.
Okay.
dude.
It's just like, hey, it's just
Trains.
like, hey.
Storm. And it's one of those storms too where the lightning flashes and the noise happens within a second.
It's like death's all around us.
Yeah. Generator going on outside.
No excuses, play like a champion.
Rule number 76.
Just a lot of adversity, dude.
Yeah,
A lot of adversity.
So Ben, what were you thinking before you came on this bus? Like what was going through your mind? Like we've been boys a long ass time, and you knew I got this thing rolling. Me and the boy.
No,
and
I already told you. I thought to myself, I've been on hundreds of interviews, and I never have been terrified for what the hell is going to be asked.
Yeah,
and then I'm looking over at Taylor like, bro's going to bring the heat.
Why is it always me?
the dude is witty, man. You got to come fucking correct if you want to dance with the devil.
Because Will knows. Will knows if he has asked anything wrong that Amy's
Hey,
going to be
that
on
thunder.
his
You heard that thunder?
Dude, you probably heard that. I mean,
You said if I say
another
anything
Bus with
wrong,
the Boys
Amy's going to be on
podcast.
my ass?
Yeah, so he'll be relatively tame.
Yeah?
Will?
Yeah.
It depends. I don't know what your guys' relationship is like. Will might just be in a little box today, but he might come out of the shell.
No, I'm ready to go.
No, he always
I'm-
cuts it to me real.
Yeah, I always try to chirp Ben because he's a performance coach. He's an author. He does motivational speaking. So I always ask him all the time, like, yo, Ben, like, you never played football. So how do you motivate football players? That's a chirp and actually a question. Like, you walk into some of these locker rooms that teams have you on, like Bama and all them. They bring you in, K-State, and they lean to you for inspiration or motivation, like these coaches do. And then you walk into a room with a bunch of football players, dogs that are going to look at you as an author, somebody who hasn't played, and wonder what the hell is this guy even going to give us.
Well, I think this is that if I go into Alabama, within the first 5 minutes, they're going to hear my mom's story. They're going to hear the challenge and adversity I went through with my dad. Parents divorced when I was 6 months old, right? Knowing that my mom passed away, then my dad had his issues. And they know that, like, I've been through shit in my life. And that's the goal that I have, no matter what group I'm in front of, sports or business, like, it's real life. And so how many downs of football I played, which was freshman year of high school. Then it was just basketball. Solid.
Freshman team, back up.
The whole thing is they realize I've been through some shit in my life, and I've been blessed to have mentors and coaches to get me up off that mat of life. And then I always say, now, that's my story, but I know everybody sitting in this room, you have a story too. Mm-hmm. And it's helping them realize, like, I know you've been through your shit, I've been through my shit. So if we can't connect there's really no work for us to do. There's really no motivation to come from until I can figure out what's in your heart, what's the fire that lies inside of you, or the burn, as I like to call it, that's going to cause you to get up on those days you don't want to do anymore. Right.
You want to talk about, in a nutshell, your mom's story?
Yeah, I mean, I think about it every day, we all have a story. We all have challenge and adversity. And for me, I had to grow up fast because my mom was diagnosed with a rare muscle disease. 1983 was the year. Mm-hmm. I was 5 years old when she was diagnosed. She goes to a hospital in Boston. Everybody in their muscles, they have amyloid. So Taylor, you have amyloids. Will's got them. I've got them. If you have an excess of amyloids, you have a disease called amyloidosis. Amyloids slowly eat away at your muscles and you die. There's no cure for the disease. Really? So my mom goes to Boston, meets with a woman by the name of Dr. Martha Skinner. Dr. Skinner tells her you got 2 to 4 years to live, and you're only the second woman under 40 years old I've ever seen or heard of having this disease, amyloidosis. And my mom, greatest prize fighter I've ever met in my life, my mom takes out an old journal and she starts writing and allowed that to become the place where she unleashed her positive mental attitude onto the world. And she wrote, beat the statistics, beat the odds, live with the disease that is chronic and fatal, believe in yourself, combat anything, purpose in life. And she showed up every night. As I've told you so many times, you know, my mom would come to the dinner table with an IV stand when we had 24-hour nursing care in the house to ask me how my day was at school. So it's like when I get hit with something in life, it's like you better come with some serious heat and some serious fire if you think you're going to break me. Because with what I've seen with these two eyes, and one of the special moments I have with my mom's story, because she taught me how to live, she taught me how to fight, she taught me how to rise up when you don't want to do it. And she passed away 11 days before my 8th birthday, but I continue her fight all the time. I share her story. You are only the second person that has touched. You were actually the first, and then I actually I shared it this year with one speaking engagement, but you were the first person that I let up in. Remember when I took out the journal?
Up in her.
So we have this moment. I keep my mom's journal in the safe at home. And it was, I think, before your second season, where we knew like you were really starting to make moves and things were really starting to take place. And I said, man, I want to show you something. We go up to the office because you always come over and stay at the house. And I pulled out the journal and just gave it to him. And you just sat there. Like, there aren't many things that make you speechless. And he's like, bro, I don't know what to say. And just like touching this journal, because he and I become so close. And then to touch that journal that's been my life's testimony, it was just wild for me to be able to
yes, and they're like looking at handwriting and stuff like that. It's just
that was my mom's.
Yeah, knowing that was back in, what did you say, 1983?
She passed away November 2nd, 1986. But 1983 was when she was diagnosed, so she made it 3 years.
And what was going on? Your dad was having issues too back then. I mean, to where you had to kind of, you talk about growing up fast. Like, yeah, you had that stuff going on with your mom, but also your dad was, you know, had his issues to where you had to be. I'm
the youngest.
You're the youngest.
Yeah. So my older brother. Yeah. So my mom passes away. Dad moves back into the house, and you know he had issues with addiction. He had all types of stuff. I'm now coming home as an 8-year-old boy, and you think Dad's napping on the couch, but you know he's had his day, and so that's by 8 years old, right? And thankfully, you know, my dad turned that challenge into a great example for me that you can also fight through anything, because 9 months later, he realized, like, man, I can't live this way. I can't have kids. And, you know, my dad has been a great example. That
what were the things he was doing?
Drugs and alcohol and, you know, stuff that is challenging and tough. And so finally he got sober, and he's literally been sober ever since. So 9 months after my mom died to now.
Was he, was the reason why, like, not the reason, but it was part of that reason because of all the struggles you had to go through with your mom and everything like that?
So they were divorced when I was 6 months old. So I think what it was, though, was other issues my dad has had, that it was such a hard life that I think he turned to that. And part of everybody's wired different. You know what I mean? There's people who can, right, we can have our bourbons, we can have fun, and people can handle it. And there's other people, it's a disease.
No question.
Yeah, it's a disease.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean, anything can really become an addiction if you let it, whether it's video games. I mean, sugar is such an addictive product that I literally have had people argue with me about that. No, sugar's not addictive. It's absolutely an addictive thing. You can't just look at it as addiction as, you know, just drugs or alcohol. Those are the easiest things to point out, but you can turn so many things into, you know, addiction, even things that are good for you. You know, if you're working out all the time or whatever, you still have to go out and live your regular life too and stuff like that. But yeah, those types of things, especially like, you know, drugs and alcohol, those are very difficult to go through. And it's so easy for people that don't deal with those issues to look and say, hey, well, it's not that big. Just stop doing it. Just stop doing it. You're fine. Well, I mean, if you drink, your brain is chemically imbalanced. It's a depressant. You feel shitty when you get off of it. And what's the easiest thing to do? Well, just go have a couple more. Little hair of the dog, they always say. Little hair of the dog that bit you. A little bit of that, and you start compounding those things on top of each other, and you become codependent on those things. And so it's a hard and, you know, windy road, and it can definitely put you into a spiral if you let it. And that goes for drugs too, not just illegal drugs, but, you know, prescription drugs and all that. Those stuff. I mean, I'm very open with the fact that, like, I've been given prescription drugs before, like roll an ankle or something like that, and you know, you don't feel better. There's no way you feel better than when you're on one of those pills. They make you feel amazing, but it comes with those, you know, the repercussions. The next day you're a little more agitated. You're a little more short with people. It is a slippery slope, but it's realizing, and I think the biggest thing that people need to understand is the best thing you do for yourself is sit with yourself and understand who you are and going through that process. The best process is not to say, well, I am this person. It's figuring out who you are not, and then shaving that down, process of elimination, to finding out who you are and then growing from that. And those are the best ways to become, like, you know, not, you know, so needing drugs or needing alcohol. You can really
depending on that stuff.
Dependent. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. So it's definitely a slippery slope. It's hard for a lot of people.
You bring up an interesting point that drugs, alcohol, anything in life. It's the way people think about things.
Right.
And you and I have had so many great conversations about it. But how you think about things determines how you show up.
Right.
Right. It's your belief system for everything, right? You've done what you've done playing in the NFL. You've done what you've done playing because you believed you would play in the NFL.
Right.
You believe you'd stand across from another man and you would frickin' punish him over and over. And that's a belief system. So then your work shows up that way. People aren't in touch enough with the fact that you got to be truthful with yourself. You got to look in the mirror and say, I either believe I will absolutely dominate any man that's in front, I will punish everybody in front of me, or you're going to have doubts. And you can't have both. You get one or the other. And people have to be truthful with themselves. And I know there's a lot of people watching, they're not professional athletes, right? And so for you in your life, you got to show up. You got to be truthful about why you are where you are. And if you're not where you want to be, you gotta look at yourself and say, what am I willing to change?
Yeah.
And you got to work harder in another area. Otherwise, you're probably going to fall short of what you actually want.
Yeah, no doubt.
It's tough. It's tough because if you play sports, it's the easiest way to figure out, okay, where am I at? Like you can figure out if I get my ass kicked, okay, I know I need to work on X, Y, and Z. Life, it's not as black and white. It's you gotta read, you gotta educate yourself. You gotta find your own deficiencies in yourself. What makes me insecure? Why are these things making me insecure? And working on those things. And I mean, that's the best part about football is it's such a competitive sport. It'll tell you where you're at right then and there. And so, I mean, that's a big reason why I'm so confident is that football's helped me learn to be a confident person. Not just that, but also like when you have an issue with something, instead of hiding from it, you got to take it head on. And if you don't go and attack it right there, I mean, if I don't do something in the first 15 minutes of learning about something, I let it get the best of me, which is a really difficult thing sometimes.
Right, but figuring out, like you guys are saying, the self-awareness factor, and then figuring out those weaknesses, and then, okay, how do I supplement those weaknesses if I can't do them on my own? Us with our diets, all of us, live well, eat well, stuff like that. If you know you're struggling in another area, that's why we ended up meeting up and going over psychological stuff, mental trainings and things that kind of like, you kind of try and brainwash yourself being like a young rookie. That's how we met. We met over Twitter.
So I got to tell them the story. I mean, everybody's got a
Twitter story.
Yeah, well, I mean, so we meet over Twitter because we had a mutual friend. We didn't know each other. All my work had been in the corporate world, so I started speaking in 2006, coaching 2008, started books, and actually the first talk I ever gave in sports was my old high school basketball team in 2011 when the coach called. So I'd done a little bit in sports, but not a lot. Right. Never worked with a professional athlete. Yet I had these 6 mental training tools for the business side.
For sales.
Yeah, for people in sales and business, performance. And I was like, man, these will work in sports too. And so Will and I get connected, and it was like, he's like, yeah, through the relationship, I'm going to trust this guy and I'm going to sit down with him. I had never used these, right? So it's like, well, we'll see if this works in the world of sports. And Will was in between the month of OTAs because he had just been signed as an undrafted free agent by the Redskins. And it was right before he was reporting for training camp. And I remember sending you that message after we connected. I'm like, hey, man, you want to get together and talk mental toughness, right? So I had a belief, hey, man, this is going to work with this guy. And then he was like, yeah, let's get together. Let's do it. So we met every Monday for a month. Man, the first time we meet, he sits down. We're sitting across in a booth. I said, man, what's on your mind? And he says,
young Will, man.
I said, what's on your mind? So this is 2013. What's on your mind? He says, you know what? If it doesn't work out with the Redskins, there's 31 other teams. I knew I had his ass, right? I mean, the moment he said that, I knew it was game over. These principles are going to work, right? So I looked at him and I said, wait a second, man. I said, I know we're just meeting for the first time.
I'm going to take all his money.
I got to ask you a question. What happens if every day you start waking up and you tell yourself, I'm a linebacker with the Washington Redskins? And if you doubt yourself in the middle of the day, you tell yourself again, I am a linebacker with the Washington Redskins. And before you go to bed, you tell yourself, man, I'm a linebacker with the Washington Redskins. Now, bear in mind, he's 7th out of 7 on the depth chart, right? They got it. They got his Alfred Morris camp jersey, number 46, waiting for him when he gets to camp. And
get Delaney Walker.
And he looked at me and he says, you know what? He goes, I'm going to start saying that every single day. And he basically, at that moment, he snapped his fingers. Like you said, 15 minutes, you got to make a decision.
Right.
And bang, he believed in it.
Do you still say every day that you're the linebacker for the Washington Redskins?
No, I don't.
Do that anymore?
I don't. I do have goals though. Ben has helped me a lot. Like I would go to Bonterra and he's in St. Louis, and we would meet in the middle and just sit down for like an hour or two.
Yeah.
And he would have stuff for me to do. Like I read a couple like mental books, so I was like obsessed with like mental psychology stuff. You know how it gets. You just
no question.
You get motivated and you get ready to go. And he reached out, wanted to help me, and I knew he spoke and did other things. So I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd be honored to sit and come up with a plan, because again, you're like, you're intimidated. And then you go through OTAs and you're an undrafted guy and you figure out like, these guys don't know me at all like I thought they would coming from Nebraska. Because I was in Nebraska and you're like, all these coaches, whoever gets me into a camp, all I need to do is get into a camp. Like and these coaches, they already know me like Bo and them do it with Nebraska. And they're going to think, oh, we got this guy. We got a diamond in the rough that didn't get drafted. You get there and you realize like, yeah, you're probably not going to make this team. You're at the bottom of every depth chart, bro. I'm talking, there's 2 of us undrafted rookie free agents, and he was playing before me. Like I like there was 3 units, and I just got to mix in with the 3rd unit every now and then. And he wanted to meet, and we met, and I was kind of like nice and brainwashed going into camp.
So you said, I want to meet with Will first.
I sent a message to him, and then he said, yeah, man, let's do it.
He reached out. He's like, yo, I love that you're into, I said something about mental training.
Yeah.
Like, I can't wait to get home and get him this some book or something like that. And he reached out. I said, yeah, let's meet halfway. And then I went into camp.
But hold on, I got to mention this, because I think this is for everybody, because you had mentioned some of us, right, we're not in sports, right?
Right.
And so if you remember, he was a captain at Nebraska, right, number 12 all-time tackle. So it's like, I knew this guy could play some ball.
Yeah.
So I said to him, I said, man, what made you a captain at Nebraska? Tell me all the things that were 100% in your control that you did, right? And we just broke it down. He's like, man, I studied more film than anybody else. Man, I was in the playbook more than anybody else. I was on top of my nutrition and all these things he could control. So I just asked it back to him. I said, what happens if you show up that same way with the Redskins? I said, what if you're another coach breaking down game film as a rookie? I said, focus on all these things you can control. And it made him reconnect back to that confidence. Like, I am that same dude.
Yeah.
I am going to go. And it doesn't matter where they tell me I am on a depth chart, because I used to tell them, don't worry about where they tell you are on a depth chart. Worry about taking somebody's job when you get there and absolutely dominate, lock in one day at a time. You win one day at a time, it's going to take care of itself. And those are the conversations we had. And then he followed through with the action. And I think for anybody listening, you can either say, oh, I have no idea what it's going to take to be successful, or you go find out. Or you look at your past success and say, am I actually willing to consistently do those things over and over and over again to keep having success? Yeah. So you're the one who decided, man, I'm going to choose the action I take. And you just showed up different than the kid who was like, man, if I don't make it, it'll be all right.
The boys goes back early, and I'm in the film room, and I'm literally game planning our offense for training camp for like those few plays I might get.
Sure.
To be out there, because you're like, okay, you can't fuck up if you get an opportunity. Well, fortunately for me, some luck played into it. Keenan, who was a draft pick the year before in like the 4th round, Keenan Robinson, he's a stud player. He gets hurt and tears his pec on day 1 of training camp. So immediately I go from 7th and rotating with the 3rd unit to now I can just get to be with the 3s. And then the guy who was undrafted in front of me, Jeremy Kimbrough, he moves up with the 2nd unit. He hurts his hamstring in that first week. So I immediately get thrusted to go with the 2s. And the boy has a day one day where I had like 2 picks and stuff like that, to where I got to be with the 2nd unit in preseason. So luck, like all this stuff kind of happens, and definitely that helped, like knowing all that stuff, and you're going in like, I'm going to show out the few plays I do get. But fortunately, on a personal level for me, a couple guys go down in front of you, which is what happens. Vrabel said it on, when he was on the podcast, the injury rate in the NFL is 100%. So you better be ready for your opportunity.
These are going to go down all the time.
Yeah.
And people who probably listen to that when you're explaining like, well, what a dick, like, he unfortunate things for me, like people got hurt. It's like, that's just the way it is.
That's just the way it is, man.
Because a lot of times in the NFL, it's not how good you are. It's not how it's sometimes like, hey, this guy's our guy, and that's what it is. Sorry, and you're gonna have to go to a different team, and that's just how it works. And there's really no right or wrong, like rhyme or reason, but it is what it is. And like, it just, when stuff starts clicking, you do take advantage of that kind of stuff. So. And
then when that guy goes down, and you know how it is, it's that next man up mentality. It's like when you're out last year, it was Dennis Kelly who comes in after you, right?
Yeah. So Dennis actually ended up getting hurt too. So the first game of the season, I got knocked out. We had the longest game in NFL history, but against the Miami Dolphins, because there was so much rain and thunder and lightning. So I ended up getting knocked out right after the second half, or right after the first half. In the third quarter. So I was out. The next week, Dennis was starting at left tackle. Dennis ended up having a situation. I'm not going to talk about his stuff because that's the number one rule, right? Vrabel's like, never talk about people's injuries. So like Dennis had his thing. So now we had our third tackle, and Jack was out too.
But the third tackle they brought in, he wasn't even on the team. Out.
Yeah, Jack was hurt. He was coming back from his injury. I get hurt, so our starters are out. Dennis is now starting. He gets his situation on Wednesday or whatever that week. He's out. So we're playing the Houston Texans with our 4th and 5th tackle.
Right.
And it's like, it's just wild.
Who were they again? Who were the tackles?
Kevin Pamphile or Pamphile, and I don't remember who was starting at right.
And he either got activated or brought him back on the team, right?
Tyler Maris. Tyler did such a great job, dude. He came in and he was a stud because I got hurt in Buffalo too, and he came in and held his own against Jerry Hughes. But yeah, like Tyler's that kind of dude too. Like he's been lucky enough to be with the Titans. Like I think he's going to his 4th year.
Right.
But it's kind of like you, like he's behind me and Jack and Dennis, and like he's kind of like on that bubble every single year. He's got that stress. Like right now is going to be his like most stressful time of the year, figuring out what's going on. He handles it so well. He's a pro, man. He really handles his stuff like a pro. But we went into that game and it's like Kevin Pamphile, we picked up from Tampa Bay. He was on the team for 6 months. He was starting, and then Tyler's been on the team for 3 years. But he's never played. He's never played in a real game, and now he's dressing and playing. It's just wild how things just happen.
Yeah, and it happens that fast, and no one gives a shit like
no one
how you
cares
get there at all. Like the head coach, and they'll look at you like, "Hey, you're up. It's your time." Like your name's the one being said in meetings now, and you sit there with that like nervous feeling, like, "Yo, I got to go out there and ball now." Like it doesn't matter that I was a 4th guy, or people are going back, "Oh, he made a mistake because he was a 4th stringer." Like, no, you gotta perform, or your ass will get cut.
Yeah, they don't expect any drop off. Like there's some elite dudes that like when they go down, you're just like, "Fuck, man!" Like your quarterback goes down,
yeah,
you're just
for
like,
sure.
"Oh shit!" Or like you got that wide receiver, like that's a big time dude. You're like, you can't really replace those.
Right.
There's going to be a little bit of a drop, but if like things just happen, man, and they expect you to play just as well as when you're a starter.
Yeah,
the starter.
And then when you're like that young cat, or you're finally getting an opportunity, like that might be your only opportunity you get. Because if you're a lower round or undrafted guy, you might only get one shot. If you're higher, you might get a couple like slap on the wrist and get a few extra chances because that's why they drafted you. But when you're on that lower cuff, man, if you don't take advantage when your name is called, like it's like, okay, he didn't work out, get him out of here. But if you do work out, it's like, oh, we found somebody. We got lucky. Oh, it's our scouting department. Like, yeah, this is us. We found him. But if not, it's like, oh, he didn't work out, but we figured.
Yeah, there's definitely not a shortage of people that want to play in the NFL. That's for sure.
Yeah.
No doubt. But if you're like, I don't know, the NFL is one thing. I feel like talking to football players, I've sat in so many rooms and motivational speakers have come in and 9 times out of 10, I get pretty hyped up. I'm easily hyped because I love watching those motivational videos. I should read more. I'm going to read more.
We send them to each other.
I need to. Yeah, we do. Because I'm all about that. Like I love like, I just love the idea of like being great. You know what I'm saying? I love like all that kind of stuff and watching those videos and reading the stuff.
And Taylor,
about
like to give you guys kind of sorry for interrupting, but Taylor will like get hype in the morning. Right? Well, because we work out together, and he'll like send me, say it's like a Conor McGregor or something about law of attraction or something Joe Rogan said.
Yeah, that's a huge thing.
So like he'll like send it, and it'll just get you hyped. So that's like what he's talking about when he says he gets super into that.
Yeah, but you can't be just like, if it's football players, it's easy. You put a video of a couple of guys making some big hits. Those guys are hyped up. They go out and play football. Like what's the difference between like football players and then when you go into like a Fortune 500 company and you got to go and talk to these people that have been suits their whole life. Since birth, they've been suits.
But for me, it's actually the same principles and the same lessons, right? It's finding somebody's burn. It's finding somebody's motivation. It's finding the actual reason why they want to do the work. And if you find the reason why somebody wants to do the work, they're going to go do the work.
Right. And
then it's holding them accountable to it. And it's very similar. There's business people who they want you to get them all fired up, right? There's sales teams. I may go give a sales talk and they're like, can you bring the heat like some of those locker room videos we've seen?
Yeah.
And then, there's some athletes who are like, bro, if you bring anything like that, like don't ever leave me a voicemail again to hype me up for a game.
No way.
Right? Yeah. So there's some NFL players, like the messages to them, it's very chill. It's, it's a poison confidence type message. It's more laid back. And then there's other guys like, man, if you're going to leave me a voicemail, you better bring it. Otherwise, don't leave me a message.
Yeah.
So it's the same way, right? Because there's going to be guys in the business world who were former athletes, right? Maybe they played high school football. Maybe they played college. To me, we all have that adrenaline, and everybody lights that adrenaline up differently. So I believe my goal is I got to connect with somebody and figure out what do they like, what motivates them. And once I find that, man, I'll go get it. Right. And so I think that's like with Will, one of the things we'd have like maybe keywords, right? I mean, there's so many different things. I mean, once you'd hone in on something, like you'd say it to him and he would just be ready to go.
Yeah.
And there were almost times he was like, I would be like, that message was too long for you, wasn't it? Like, you just needed me to like say this. Because we've become so close, like brothers. He's just like, bro, like that, just give me the 3 words. That's all I need.
Like I don't need the whole paragraph stuff you give to everybody.
Just give it to me straight. Give it to me straight.
Will is, God, I hate complimenting the boy, but here we go. Will is definitely, without a doubt, one of the hardest. Like, Will wants to be great so bad. And it's not just like my whole, like, since I got a scholarship offer, I talk all the time, like, I got an offer from Utah State spring ball going into my senior year. And I as soon as I got offered from them, I was like, oh, I'm going to the NFL. Like, that's it. And people were like, well, and then, I was like, no, it's not. I'm going. That is it. It's done. And I never had a plan B. It was always like, well, I'm going to the NFL. I'm going to the NFL. Will has done such a great job of making his dreams come true, of going to the NFL, working so hard, becoming a captain while you're the captain of the Redskins, right?
Yeah.
Doing those types of things. But the whole time, like, I'll get in his car and he's listening to some damn podcast about real estate. And he's listening to a podcast about, how to diversify your portfolio so your money grows. And it was like, this dude just like, he just wants it, whatever that is. It's very admirable to see.
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
man.
fuck yourself. And that's it. And I'm leaving the podcast.
Well, he doesn't realize that he inspires the hell out of me too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's I maybe came in,
We'll still do this. Yeah,
Hey,
I love it, man. I'll take a sip.
Hey, it's iron. It's iron sharpens iron. But I mean, he definitely motivates me. His story, his belief, his fight. I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. The only issue I've ever had with Will is when we first started speaking together, getting his ass off the stage, because we went to Nebraska and it's like, I don't know how you get the mic out of his mouth. I'm glad you get to speak every now and again. You know what I mean? Because like we'd get him. I remember the one time we went to that military university, right? And he's all these troops, and I think he's fired up because he's speaking to the troops, right? And I think we each had 20 minutes, and so he's got 20, I've got 20. He goes first. We're like 35 minutes in. I'm like, bro, I just want to like thank him for their service.
I gotta say hi. I guess
we gotta
get the hell out of here.
We gotta get you off the stage. And then he's like, did I go too long? And I'm like, yeah, you took the whole time.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you've taught him that he's got to share. You know what I mean?
I don't think I've taught him anything. I just talk to more than him.
Well, I always tell him, there's 3 boys in the family. I say, this is the only family I've ever met where literally like, you're like the only child, yet there's 3 children. You know what I mean? He doesn't share. He doesn't do any of that stuff.
He's a terrible sharer. He's awful at it. Well, now let's go through a little phase where you shit on Will.
Now we will transition.
He's actually a terrible person. I don't really think about it.
When you get down to the nitty gritty. But how, like, so you are where you are now, but it all started somewhere. Like, you get done with Michigan State. Why all of a sudden are you now being told or asked to speak? Why are you now in these rooms? Like, where did it start? Where did it come from? Because you worked in Northwestern Mutual, correct?
Yeah, I was a financial advisor over 10 years. And yeah, I mean, I had a great run, on that professional side of things. But you know what? I always look at the tough stuff I've been through and how I responded that defines the person that you become, right? So if it wasn't enough, my mom and my dad and all these things, I was a paper broker in Chicago. I was engaged for 13 hours to my college sweetheart, right? Had I gone to Michigan, maybe it would have worked out.
Yeah, maybe. I'll tell you what, man. You say you're a motivational speaker. I just can't even imagine like someone coming from Michigan State. Like you had to be. I feel like the only motivation is getting the hell out of there, right? Like you have to think to yourself, man. Like that's probably when you knew, like, man, my mom, my dad, but I got the fuck out of this college. That's probably what you're thinking. And now you're a motivational speaker. I'm really happy for you. I'm happy for you. You've come this far.
Oh, God. So engaged 13. That won't be the end of it either now that he's opened it up.
Yeah.
So engaged 13 hours. Thank God she told me no. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the life that I have. Heck, I go back to the first time I was invited to speak. Right, I got paid $500, and I'm like, this is a thing. And then, like after that, I would get coffee cups, and then you got to come home and tell your wife, like, hey, I got a coffee cup to speak. Like, she's looking like, how the hell is that going to pay the bills? And I go to San Diego, and they give you this beautiful picture book, and everybody signs it. Yet they paid my expenses, right? So like, you live in this land where here's my dream, here's where I know I can get to, and everybody always asks me, they're like, you work for Alabama football? You worked for Kansas State, you've worked for Microsoft. Like, how did you start? I'm like, well, I didn't start there, right? Everybody wants that. And, you hop on social media these days and everybody's an author, everybody's a speaker. And I wish the best to everybody because I'm an abundant guy, right? But you got to put in the work. And everybody wants the end result. Nobody wants to do the work. And it's like, look, I hope you do become a great speaker. I hope you do write books, but have a willingness to do the work. Right. So what did I tell you? I spoke to my high school basketball team. That was my first work in sports. I've gone back for 8 years, still giving back to my high school basketball team because I love my coaches. They've helped me become the man that I am today, right? You've met them. You've come back to my high school. So it's all those little things that you have a willingness to do because there's passion. And you got a fire inside of you to go do it rather than focusing on money, focusing on the results. And most people don't want to do the work these days.
That's what everyone wants, a quick fix. Everyone wants to just be rich and they want to be famous and all this. It's like, we talked about it on a podcast before. It's like people see the result of what football has done for us, not the hard work that we put in to get the result of football. Like, Sundays are great, but there's camp, there's working out, there's like literally no off season. You have to go, you get your couple weeks of vacation, but you're working out all the time, trying to stay on top of it. Me and Will are always talking about nutrition. We're talking about our workouts, and all that stuff accumulates over time. And it's like, there's a lot of that. You always see those little motivational posters, and it's like a cat hanging from a branch, and it's like just keep on going or whatever. But then you see like the iceberg, and it like shows the tip of the iceberg of success. But you see all the build, like how you build everything, and people don't see all the hard work you put in. Then you have the tip of the iceberg, which is like what everybody actually wants. But anything worth having or doing, you have to work for.
But here's the crazy thing. You give that iceberg example.
Yeah.
Here's the wildness. And sometimes I like to be more direct just to like shake up the listeners to realize what we're talking about here. They see that and they still don't see what's beneath the water. Like they literally see it. And it's like somebody didn't just like, that's actually how you get there, right? Like, do you want to see the reps that Taylor's put in? Do you want to see the footwork that he's put in? Do you want to see the number of hours that Will's put in? All the stuff that's below, and you could put that, they don't see it. All they still see is the iceberg. It's like people fight the fact that like you have to work in order to get the things that you want.
Yeah, that's it's
very difficult.
Do you ever like watch guys like
Will? I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, couldn't say any better, boys.
Do you ever watch guys like Tony Robbins or Eric Thomas, like those motivational speakers, and like take things from them, learn things from them, or anything like that?
So I like to learn from everybody. I mean, I read books like crazy. Eric Thomas and I actually hung out for a couple of days at Bama training camp last year, which was a great time. And what I pay attention to is how does he interact with people? Right. So yeah, I heard his talk. His talk was great, but like, how does he interact with people?
Good speaker.
Yeah, great speaker. But like watching him, we'd be eating with the players. How's he interacting with the players? That's the stuff I want to see. Like, how do you treat people? How do you deal with people? What are the questions that you ask? And he's engaging with guys, right? So it's like if I meet somebody, like I'd want to know, Taylor, what makes you great? I want to hear like, what did you do to get to where you are? Like, I want to learn when you meet somebody. So those are the things I look for. And of course, I mean, the moment you stop growing, you're done, right? I mean, if you just say, oh, I've made it to this point, and we always talk about the seduction of success, you can't be seduced by success. Right, you have to have that belief and I mean, it's standard over feelings, which is what I learned from him. We can clear this up.
What do you mean by that? You can't be seduced by success.
So Will taught me something called standard over feelings.
I got that from Tony Robbins.
Okay, so standard over feelings. So. And then I came up with Seduction of Success, right? So as he kind of took me through this, I said, all right, well, from what I've seen, the people I've shared the stage with, the people that I've learned from, books I've read, the highest performers are not seduced by success. So the moment that you have achievement, you actually crave more. You realize, like, because of that achievement, that makes me realize what I can. I'm going to go get after it again tomorrow. And most people, let's give sales, right? Business world. They sell something great yesterday. They walk into the office, man, I'm not going to dial the phone for like a week. Yeah. I may not dial the phone. You see that commission check I'm going to get? And the next thing you know, 3 months later, they're like, what happened to my business?
Right.
And you're like, dude, you didn't work for 3 months. Now we average out that big commission over 3 months. It's average. And then they're upset. What happened? You got seduced by your success rather than realizing that's the moment where you really grow. If I don't define myself by that check and I say, man, I can get after it again tomorrow. And then you say, how can I get better tomorrow? And that becomes a cycle. You do it over and over and over again. That's grit. That's conviction, passion, perseverance, getting after it one day at a time. That's how you become great.
Yeah. That's definitely it.
That's well said. I like the Seduction of Success because it's all about the whole standard over feelings. The thing that I learned from Tony Robbins, listening to all his YouTube stuff. You have this standard, like me personally, like when I listen to that, whenever he was talking, it's like, okay, Will Compton, what do I want to be? Okay, I want to be a Pro Bowl linebacker. What is a Pro Bowl? Okay, you start with the end in mind. So, okay, it's Pro Bowl, right? I want to be great. I want to be a great linebacker. What does a great linebacker do on a daily basis? And it's that standard you write out for yourself because day one, Will Compton, when we're motivated and in the offseason and we're about to go day one, the boy gets in town and we're ready to go day one, that same Will Compton is not going to feel the same as day 30 Will Compton. Yeah. Day 30, he'll start having his feelings like you wake up, you might want to snooze that alarm extra more times. We might want to take a day off. But if you have that standard written out of what the Pro Bowl version of Will Compton looks like and what is a Pro Bowler doing on a daily basis, how does he eat? How does he talk to himself? What does he listen to? What is he reading? And how does he go about his life compared to if you just go by your feelings all the time, you're going to wake up, you feel sorry here. I'm a little more sore today. I'm going to eat this food. I'm going to eat these treats or desserts. I'm going to, talk to myself in a feeling sorry way. Like, okay, you put all this work in yesterday, you get seduced a little bit by that success and you don't continue to live out that standard that you wrote for yourself on day one. That's why I think it's super important to write things down because you see it and you remind yourself, okay, this is where I was when I was super motivated compared to how I'm feeling now in the dog days of a season or a training camp and stuff like that. So that's why I like the whole standard over feelings mantra.
Yeah. The unfortunate thing is a lot of times people do have success and they're not going to want success again until they have that failure next.
Yeah.
Like they'll go and this is so great, and then you think you're so great, and then all of a sudden a couple of things happen, and you're like, well, maybe I'm not so good. You feel sorry for yourself, then take it up. And you make yourself. It makes you appreciate what the success actually was, that day to day.
Absolutely, and then overcoming that, your character is built through how you respond in adversity, right? Like, yeah, we're all going to be successful at certain periods of time, but like you just said, like you're going to get humbled, you're going to get kind of shaken a little bit, but how you respond is ultimately who you were in the first place. You just needed to realize that, my shit isn't what I thought it smelled like all the time.
Right.
And then you overcome that, and then you're even more of a fucking badass. More of a fucking wolf, I guess.
But I've always believed that if you put in the hard work, then you're prepared when the bad stuff happens. And if you don't put in the work, you're not prepared. And a lot of that is the mental side, right? That's the big difference, is the mental side. Because maybe a young guy does come in, right? He all of a sudden he's pushing you, but then it's your mental belief in yourself. It's the push. It's all those reps that start to come out. It's that belief, and you're like, I don't care who this guy is. I don't care what the position is. Nobody's taking anything away from me because I own this,
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And it's just a different level of belief that comes out, man. That fire lights up in your eyes, and you could you just attack it.
We're getting super motivated in this pod right now, boys.
I always wonder about that. Like, you just brought up a good point. Like, I always wonder, like, when is it going to be the point where someone does come in
And challenge you?
Well, not challenge me, but so they do draft a left tackle, and they do have like, okay, this is the guy that's going to take over Lawan's spot. He's getting old. He's this, that. Like, I wonder how I'm going to. Hopefully, like, I always think about that. I hope I handle that with poise, and I hope I help that guy, because when I came in, I didn't get a lot of help from the older guys, and so I had to go do it on my own, and I do hope that when the guy comes in, whoever that person might be, hopefully he's in elementary school right now, like he comes and I'm like, hey, let me take you through this. Like, this is how I learned to be a better player. This is that. But still, like, obviously play like that. I think that's the difference. Like, being motivated isn't like, knocking someone down to take a step up. It's if you help everybody go up. Like, being the best time you learn is when you're teaching. So me helping that person,
No doubt.
whoever he is, hopefully he's in diapers, and I'll be able to handle it well at that time.
He calls himself the new dad.
If he called himself new dad, we have to fight.
Yeah, that's fine.
See everything out the window right there.
I don't know if you guys have shared this yet, if you've talked much about London Fletcher, but exactly what you're describing is exactly how London Fletcher treated you.
Yeah, for sure.
And, London Fletcher, awesome. I just remember the stories you told me of, he would literally wait in the hot tub, and he'd be waiting, and you would chat, and you'd ask him questions, and he'd answer. And the reality was, like, he was on his last legs. He was finishing his career, and he could have been like, why am I going to give this kid?
He knows he's a Hall of Famer, yeah.
And he knows why would I talk to this kid? Like, why am I going to give him any bits and pieces of wisdom?
It's way easier to be that guy when you know you're going to be a Hall of Famer, or like you've hit the top. It's those guys that, had some success, was kind of consistent in that area, but never really did it big.
But London was always that.
Dude,
way.
I know you're saying, because literally you're saying that, and I'm kind of thinking like it was hard sometimes to step out of my zone and help Rashawn.
Right.
Rashawn, because I was kind of like, it's not like I know I'm going to be some Hall of Famer, and I've already done what I've done in the NFL. It's like I knew they drafted a guy in the first round. I signed here to challenge and have a role on the team.
Yeah, but you can say that to be humble. But I remember last year when we talked and you were helping Rashawn.
I definitely helped him.
There's no doubt.
I'm saying in my mind that he's talking about.
Go battle.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely.
Right, like you're sitting there like, do I want to fully help him because I want to play the spot he's playing?
Yeah, but to me, this now you're talking about what legacy is, right? So you didn't want to do it, but you did it. Something tells me if you ever get that feeling, you may not want to do it, but you just vocalize, you're going to do it.
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
And then you're going to be home and you're going to be texting that guy. You're going to be like, bro, man, I had a hell of a run. I love this game. This game was good to me. And man, I'm enjoying what you're doing out there. And you're going to know you're going to have a piece of the next flip of that belief in him that caused him to go on and have a great career. That's what legacy's all about.
Yeah.
It's just crazy how, like, I'm 28 now, so I'm old as fuck. But I remember being like in high school, and I remember being like my first couple years in college, even the end of college, and my first couple years in the NFL, thinking like, this is the only thing that matters. It's like how good, like how you're known in football. And the older you get married, you have a kid, like you realize like just being, your character of who you are off the field is the most important thing. So if I'm meet some kid who's trying to take my job and I treat him like an asshole, he's always going to remember me as an asshole. He's never going to remember me for who I know I am or how I treat my friends. And so that would be more important to me. And I think that would override any egotistical battle, I hope, with like, playing the game of football. Like, I want to be this, I want to play 10 more years, I want to do like, achieve all these, goals that really at the end of the day don't mean very much. It's a team sport.
Yeah.
These individual goals don't truly mean as much as you feel that they do when you're in the moment.
Yeah. Is there a moment where that kind of clicked for you and you thought that way, or is it kind of a combination, or was there a conversation with maybe a vet? I know you when you were telling me the story about Whitworth and guys you look up to, like, was there ever a moment where you're like, yo, this is I'm changing my perspective, or maybe a drive home and you're listening to some shit?
I think my moment for me was after this last season, the 2018 season. I hated football. I really did not like playing the game at all. I was mad at the coaches. I didn't get along with my offensive line coach. Me and Regal got at it a lot, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, I was like, because I told Will when we first met, I'll play forever. I don't even care. And I still wanted to play more, but I was also like mad about football and all these different things. And what I learned was it wasn't any of their fault. It was mine. Like, I was the one that was being a cancer. I was the one that was self-entitled.
Not necessarily people listen like he wasn't a cancer. I know what you're saying. Yeah, in your own mind. Yes.
In my own mind, I guess more than anything, I was a cancer to myself.
Right.
So like I wasn't going around the locker room like saying a bunch of stuff for anybody who's listening to that. But what I did do was I did feel a little self-entitled. I signed a big contract and I felt, I deserve this and I deserve that. Why are they treating me like this and not taking on that massive responsibility? I still played well. I had a good season last year. But I didn't really see the responsibility that I had when I signed that big contract. And I thought things were more owed to me than that I actually, I should have been giving instead of receiving. So I'm looking at myself. I'm in California and I'm sitting there and I'm listening to the ocean. I'm sitting on the beach looking out and I'm like, it's not anybody's fault but mine that I'm feeling this way. Like that resistance I was getting from Vrabel, he's a great coach, and there's always going to be things that he and I agree and disagree on. But at the end of the day, like, his goal is to make sure a team goes in the right direction. And I was causing resistance. I was dragging him down a little bit in that, whether it was in my head or not. So having that control, having the understanding of knowing what you can control is the only thing that actually matters. And if someone came to me and said "fuck you," well, I know that probably has nothing to do with me, the words that they said. It has more to do with everything that's going on with them. Mm-hmm. And I was the guy saying "fuck you" the whole time because I was, I felt all these things that I thought I deserved and reality wasn't real. And so I had to start reading more. I started, I actually had to get off my phone more. I had to start doing things to make myself grow. And now I went in and these OTAs have been the most fun OTAs. The camp has been the most fun. It's because I'm only focusing on the things I control and accepting the responsibility that I do have on this team. And so it's always hard to admit because you never want to be the bad guy or feel like the villain, but it was definitely something that I needed to start taking a hold of understanding, you're in your sex, you gotta be a leader. Mm-hmm. You gotta be a guy that you can't just be dicking around all the time and just be laughing. And you gotta know when's a good time to joke, when's a good time to, be serious and finding that balance of stuff like that. And so those things definitely helped me kind of realize that it's not as important to have the accolades and stuff like that. It's more important when I leave this locker room, whenever it is, that these coaches and these players that I play with said, man, Taylor's a good dude. And he cared about the boys, and their kids will hang out with my daughter and be like, yeah, my dad loved your dad. That's the shit I was like, man,
put it in perspective.
It's so important. It's so important to be, it's not important that how people view you, but it's important to have peace in your own self.
Right.
People say don't be so self-centered. I think it's really important to be self-centered because what is self-centered? It's be at the center of yourself, and understanding who you are and what motivates you and your character. So yeah, it was tough. It was definitely a tough off season for sure, but it's I'm really grateful once I started to figure it out, really grateful to know that, it's the dislike or displeasure of football is totally within my own hands. Whether I'm playing well or not, it's all that perception. Perception is reality.
That's why
I think hang
on. That's why I hang out with that motherfucker. Because shit like that.
Well, I kind of think I went all over the place too.
So here's what I captured in hearing that, and I would go even just a little bit deeper, is the stories people are going to tell your daughter about how in year 6 you flipped the switch where you already have this in you. I mean, I've watched you play. I've watched them try to take you off the field and you're coming back on the field. But literally this mentality that you've never approached 6 seconds of play as intently, as intentionally, with as much fire as you do now because of your daughter. And because people are going to say you had to scrape daddy off the field to get him off the field. Yeah. You had to pull him out of the locker room to get him out of the locker room because he would have done anything for his teammates, whether it was on the field or in the locker room. And it's all about legacy. And I think you flip that switch to having the ability to look your daughter in the eyes, because the reality is you're probably not going to be playing 10 years from now, right?
Well, probably.
Maybe. You never fucking know, dude.
Okay, so...
No, probably.
I probably will be, but, but I don't have an ego, right?
But you know what I'm saying? Like, when it comes to your daughter, she may not get to see you in your prime, and your prime is right here, and embrace it like you never have before. Because your daughter is watching every single move that you make. And that's not what I realize. Like with my mom, like people are like, man, like your mom died 11 days before your 8th birthday. How do you remember any of this? Man, that's all I had.
Right.
All I had was 11 days before my 8th birthday. That's it.
Right.
Right. So kids pay attention, right? Everybody's watching your behavior. And I think it's an exciting time for you where now that you've made it through that mentally, man, you just watch what happens, right? You'll turn up to a whole nother level.
The thing is, it's not like the blessing and the curse of like the mind is it's not just like I've reached that level and that's it. Like it's a constant maintenance and constant work at like staying on top of those things.
Right.
It could be a couple months from now. And if I don't like, stay reading or keep up on, myself or, my wife is so smart. She's so incredibly intelligent and she can break things down. And the story I love telling is when I was in year 2, after my second season, people were talking about replacing me. Matt Neely, keyboard warrior, was probably saying, "We gotta get the fuck rid of this guy." Those types of guys. Listen, Matt, I'm just kidding.
Hang on, Matt. Easy, Matt.
Hold on.
No, you know that I have written positive things about you constantly.
Matt's always been a fan, but I do say that there are big Titan faithful people that wanted me out. And I met my wife right after that offseason. I met her January 31st. I proposed to her 5 weeks later, and she helped me just kind of realize the bigger picture. And the one thing that always sat with me is like if your life was like a garden and you'd have all these different pieces of your life, whether it's your social life, your business life, your family life, and all, like you have these pots. And if I'm watering the football one all the time, that's great, and that one's going to grow. But look at all these other ones dying around it, and if those die, that's going to affect the plant that's living too. And so you got to continuously water all these plants all the time and stay on top of it, and kind of checks and balances. Man, you got to watch yourself a little bit. Like, okay, I'm dipping into the negative a little over here. I got to go water that plant for a second. You stay on top of those things. If you're not so anally focused, that's what I was. I was like, I got to do this. I got to do football. I was like strangling myself that was actually holding me back. And once I let go and allowed myself to, have a relationship like I do with my wife and, socially and everywhere else, and a more like a healthy version of all that, like since then I made 3 Pro Bowls in a row. And it's just crazy. And I've like, we joke all the time. She goes, she said, the first contract, that was yours, but that second contract's mine. And I was like, you're damn right. She's awesome, man. She's the coolest. But it definitely puts things in perspective. And I say that when we talked about earlier how, sometimes you got to fall. Like you have that success, you got to fall to know how good that success tasted. Because my first year, I didn't play the first 5 games. I still made all rookie team. I was a first-round draft pick, and I felt like I was on top of the world. Well, after that second season, I was like, holy shit, like, I might be out of the league in a couple of years. People are calling for my head, and like that motivates you and makes you want to be better. But I know now, going through both those, that someday people are going to be, hey, you're too old, bud. You're too old. There's a faster kid out there that's going to take your job, and if you don't stay on top of it, you could last a year or 2 longer after that, but eventually it's going to catch up to you, except for Tom Brady.
Yeah. No doubt, man. I think that just kind of is relatable to everybody, that everybody constantly fucking goes through speed bumps, right? Like you're sitting there saying that, I'm thinking about my rookie year, like when I didn't get activated and I was on P Squad the whole year, and when I was like really bitter about it and pissed off that like when somebody tore their ACL, they went out and got somebody else to play special teams and not be the backup. And it's like, I thought you guys were going to activate me. And dude,
you called me every week from week 13 on. He was activated. The coach told him, this is it, bro. This is your week. Yeah. Literally from week 13 on.
And I'd be so pissed off. And you had asked if I'm still doing the Prize Fighter Day, like still check marking the boxes of the things that kind of got me to where I was.
What's the Prize Fighter Day?
So I believe, similar to what you just said about watering the plants, I share what I call a prize fighter day. So it's doing things that are personal, professional, athletic, or of service to others. And make sure every day you're checking something on all those boxes that are 100% in your control, putting all your effort in so you can say, I won the day. And if you can stack winning those days, you can actually have balance in your life, right? An all-pro professional football player can have balance, right? Be a hell of a dad, be a hell of a husband, read books and do all those things.
Water the right plant.
Water the right plants every day. Not go, hey, it's football season. I won't read a book. It's football season. I won't hang out with my wife. No, it's you can do those things if you choose to do them, and that's what he's referring to.
I'm still finding that balance too.
Yeah,
go ahead.
for sure.
Sorry.
For sure. But all I'm saying is, like, you need those people in your life to check you and kind of like, you got to look in the mirror like, okay, Will, are you doing these things that Ben asked you about? Like this year when when stuff would go down with me and I had that injury and I was out for like 4 or 5 weeks, and, I wasn't having the most fun either, and kind of taking on my new role of being a guy in the background and kind of just being a camaraderie guy. And then Charles would question me a lot about, like, you don't think you're just going through a phase, or, hey, how's that new book that you were reading? Or I thought you said you weren't gonna eat those things. Or they kind of just check you and to make you look in the mirror and realize, like, am I holding my own self accountable through like these questions? That's why it's super important to have people in your life that hold you accountable, check up on you, review with you what's going on. And whether or not you might say something that might be a white lie in the beginning, I'm standing there brushing my teeth at night knowing, okay, am I really doing these things that they asked me about, that Ben asked me about, that Charles asked me about? Like, am I holding myself accountable in that nature, or am I just going through a phase and just kind of feeling sorry for myself? So everybody goes through that shit, man. That's why it's important. You are who you surround yourself with. That's why we're around each other all the time. That's why we're always like feeding each other's minds with stuff. We have our partners at home. We have our mentors. You have guys that you want to lean on, like, or a younger guy that you want to teach, and you're actually getting something from him, even though you don't realize it. Like, you're getting something from somebody younger than you that you're giving to, and you're just like kind of clinging onto them. It's super important. It's super important.
It's I don't know, man. People have such a knack for feeling fucking sorry for themselves. It's wild.
It's natural. It's human nature.
It's crazy how if you just took a moment and learned about yourself 5 minutes a day, sat there, didn't do anything, and you don't have to cross your legs and say, meditation is in all forms. I could sit here like this for 5 minutes and just sit with myself. What's bothering me? Why is it bothering me? And the more you learn that, it's not going to be like you're going to have the perfect attitude all the time. But what it does do is, when I do snap, it gives me a chance to, like, 5 minutes later, be like, okay, well, why is that bothering me? Well, this is going on. This stress is on me. Well, I can't let that affect this. So I can go and, diffuse any situation, not let it build on top of itself. But if you never take the time to learn anything about you, you're going to always, like, blame other people. And if you blame other people, most of the time, if you're pointing at somebody else saying it's your fault, it's probably something you've done.
Right.
That's why depression's a huge thing, and especially now in 2019, it's so huge because there's so many ways to not sit with yourself, or it's almost mind-numbing for people. You can get on social media and sit there on Twitter for hours, Instagram for hours, and you never have to actually check in with the reality that's hurting you in the back end.
Yeah, well said, yeah.
And then one thing leads to another. They keep compounding on top of each other, and then the people start blaming. Well, you're a football player, and you live the best life. Listen, I've had my own adversity with my family. Like, I've grown up a certain way that, they're live and around. So I'm not going to like dive in on a podcast about it. But we've had a lot of issues that I've had to work through. But it's not like I just came out of the womb with a cape on,
with an $80 million contract. Yeah, there's just nothing that goes on.
And we've done it. Everyone else suck it. Yeah, it's like the more you feel sorry for yourself, the more you're gonna have more things to feel sorry for yourself about. Yeah. So stop complaining. People, it's so easy to find things to complain about, and it's really hard to find things to be happy about. Yeah. It's crazy if you go on people tell me to journal all the time. I really do need to start doing it. But if you just say 5 things a day you're grateful for, the positivity, it's like the law of attraction. It's the universe. If you speak in positive, you speak in a positive tone all the time, it's gonna end up that way. But if you're constantly shitting on yourself, whether it's a joke or not,
you're gonna reap that.
It's gonna come get you. People gotta stop feeling sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
I always talk about the burn, as I mentioned earlier, and the burn is that underlying fire that really lights the purpose and the why. Because I think there's a lot of guys talk about purpose and why, and it's like, well, man, I don't really know what those things are. Well, then tell me what the burn is. Tell me, like, when you think about this, like, taking no action is not on the other side of these thoughts, right? So for me, every day waking up thinking about my mom. And I actually put together this burn challenge where I encourage people every day, first thing you do, before you check text message, before you do this, wake up and just write out what your burn is in a journal for 30 days. Just write
one sentence, right?
One sentence. Yeah, one sentence. And I'm on day 22 right now. I don't even need to do this. I've been thinking about my purpose and my burn every day, my whole damn life because of what I had to see.
But you're setting an example.
I'm setting an example. And you know how many people they message me on Instagram like, what is this? You know, and it's, what is this? And then it's like, that you can just tell from their tone, like, what kind of nonsense, it's what nonsense is this? Not, hey, help me understand the meaning of this. And then some people come at you, but people don't realize what you think about, you 100% control your mindset.
Right.
You can either control your mindset and say, papers wrote about me, paper said this, paper did that. Or, I mean, if we had more time, we could sit here and say, what did you really think about when the paper saw that, right? There was some fire that said, man, I'm gonna go into the weight room. Now, with your baby girl, right? You wake up every day and you think about the example that you set for your baby girl. The other side of that is not getting your reps in the gym. The other side of that is not doing what it takes to be recognized as one of the greatest left tackles to ever play the game, right? You've done the Pro Bowls, but now we take it to the next level, right? And most people don't realize you control those thoughts. And as you have those life changes and things change, first baby I had, man, life changed. It's like now you're an example for somebody else. Now legacy means something else. Now I'm taking the pen that my mother passed to me. I get to pass it to my son. I get to pass it to my daughter. That's a hell of a responsibility and something I will absolutely attack every single day to make sure I can touch as many lives as I can. And like, to me, you think about something like that, you think about your daughter in that context, getting after it, right? One play at a time. That's like, easy. It's easy. But most people don't realize you 100% can control thinking that way. They'd rather get up and say, gosh, my boss did this yesterday. And then
it's easier.
Because it's easier. I'd rather have that than actually do what it takes to control your mind.
It's a victim's mentality.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I'll watch my daughter watch my wife, and my wife will go do something, and she'll walk away, and then the wind will come up behind her and pretend to do the same thing. And then they'll go the next thing, and like she coughs. My daughter will be like, like pretending to cough. Like the bean is, she's a sponge. I mean, it's not just the bean; it's everybody. But I call my daughter the bean. For those who are listening,
yeah, the bean.
She's a complete stud. Yeah, she's so awesome.
Dude, we dropped a fucking gym today.
Is there anything else we really need to hit on?
Yeah, Ben, you got anything else? Anything you wanted to ask the boys?
So for people that do have connected with the things they've heard on this, that they can follow you, what kind of social medias you got?
Yeah, so at Continued Fight is my social media.
Okay, is that for Instagram?
That's the primary one. That's Instagram, that's Twitter, and those are the most popular ones.
That's awesome.
What about a website?
Website is bennewman.net.
Okay.
.net.
Yeah, and if you go to bncspeakers.com, you'll find Big Willie over here. He's one of our speakers. We've been on the road. We've probably done 30-something speaking engagements together. And Will's a hell of a speaker. I was joking that you couldn't get him off the stage.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, this is one of the most intelligent guys I've met. I remember we went to North Dakota State. We had just come off of I was there 4 years before the head coach took me to Kansas State with him. And 3 of the 4 years we won a national championship. He comes in the year after we had fallen short of winning the national championship. And the way he inspired those kids, man, they still freaking talk about it. And we ended up going back to back the years after that. Man, inspired the quarterback who just got drafted by the Chargers. Like his level of inspiration is really something else. And that's why I know for him that fire, because I think back to when we were in your apartment, when you were on practice squad. We went out to dinner to celebrate it. I came out to see him, and he was writing out, he's on practice squad talking about, I'm going to have camps. I'm going to give back in my community. I'm going to speak. I'm going to do all these things. He didn't hold back the fact that he was on practice squad to keep him from believing he would have camps, believing he would save money.
Right.
You wrote down you believe you'd invest in real estate. And far too many people are worried about the chapter where they are and how they're never going to get to where they're going, rather than recognizing the chapter where you are right now might be the best damn chapter, and you solidifying the foundation that's going to give you the mindset to go conquer and achieve everything you want in your life. And that's what you've done. And that's why I love this guy to death. I'm sure you can tell, but he's like an uncle to my kids. I would do anything for this guy. And that's what I want the listeners to know. Forget following me. Like, I would do anything for this dude. And that, to me, that's what life is all about. It's about knowing you got relationships like this. I could call this dude at 3:00 in the morning and say, bro, something went down in St. Louis. And unless there was something that he absolutely couldn't do it, he'd be like, bro, I'm in the car. He'd be like, bro, I'm in the car.
I'd be sleeping.
And I always
really
dreamed he would answer that he would come for me, and now he tells me he'd sleep.
Well,
I appreciate it. You do.
I'll go looking for a new friend.
Right,
You do a good job hyping me up. There's a Alabama transfer. It was that long snapper. He came from Bama.
Yep.
Scott. He's at Vandy now.
Yeah, Scott's a great
He came
kid.
up to me when we were there working out. He's like, "Hey, do you know Ben Newman?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know Newman." He's like, "Yo, he's talked about you a lot, man. Like, it was a really cool thing knowing he transferred from there and came from somewhere I've never even been, and knowing that you probably say these nice things. I really appreciate it."
Well, I remember one of the linebackers from Bama before the national championship last year. He met you on an elevator somewhere.
Yeah, it was cool. He said we were at the Pro Bowl. It was
that's what the Pro Bowl.
CJ Mosley's brother or cousin,
Jamie. His brother.
And we were on the elevator at the Pro Bowl, and he said the same thing. Like, "Hey, do you know Ben Newman?" I was like, "Yeah, I know Ben. That's my boy." He's like, "Man, he always comes to Bama and says a lot of great stuff." Because I'm sitting there thinking, I always get curious knowing you're about to go in another locker room. What is going to be the feedback? Just because, you stepped into the sports world not like that long ago, like however long, 7 years ago now?
2013 was the first time.
And I'm always wondering, like, when you step in these new locker rooms, like how guys are going to take some of this stuff in. I always get curious. I know how I took it in, but sometimes there's different levels of thinking to think about it.
There's two things going through my mind that I got to share before we stop. The first one is every message has to be different. Mm-hmm. When Coach Kleiman went from North Dakota State and he went to Kansas State, and we sat down because he would always have me develop a theme for the season, right? And this season it's Pound the Stone. I've never used Pound the Stone at Alabama. I've never used Pound the Stone at North Dakota State. Never used it with the Dolphins. Never used it anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, like, it's got to be something fresh. It's got to be something new. And too many coaches think, well, I'll go from here and I'll just pick it up and I'll put it over here. Man, you got to find out how those guys tick. You got to find out what's in their locker room. You got to find out how they think. And then I had a buddy of mine, Joshua Medcalf, who wrote a book called Pound the Stone, Let Me Use It. But I think it's finding what's actually going to resonate. And it's been a blessing that we've been able to find these messages that have worked, and they have. And then the behavior comes behind it. They rally around it. No different than For the Boys, right? I'm sitting here watching from home, knowing you two dudes were the ones who did that. And that was one of the proudest moments, knowing that, like, even though you weren't getting everything that you wanted last year in the time that you wanted it, you were in there, the two of you, for the boys, getting those guys to rally, getting those guys to give all themselves. Dude, that's the stuff that it's all about. It's continuing to fight when you don't want to do it. And here's the beauty of this for me, and I've got to tell this story, because we wouldn't be sitting on this bus right now, and none of these stories of people you've met and my ability to share your story to inspire others, and it's a crazy inspiration, bro. That first training camp that I go to see him, right? So for 4 weeks, we get together. We're doing all this mental training stuff. This is the story. None of this. We're not here.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
All right.
So I literally.
You got a minute. You got 60 seconds.
All right, so before you go, there's a train. It wouldn't be a bus.
That's all we got to say. There's a train.
Got to put it out. Go ahead. Sorry.
So he calls me the day before I'm supposed to get there, and he says, bro, he goes, there's something really bad with my hamstring. So I get there. Turns out we didn't know it at the time. He had a torn hamstring. So he comes from practice. He says, meet me at the team hotel. And I'm thinking I'm just going to be hanging out at training camp, and it's like, oh, man, we got to go to work. So we meet across from the Starbucks. We're at the Omni Hotel in Richmond, Virginia, and I sit across from him, and I looked at him, and I said, bro, I'm like, can you go? And he's like, I could go. And I'm like, who knows what the situation is? I'm like, can you go without hurting yourself and causing long-term damage? Can you go? And he's like, bro, I can go. I'm going to get this thing strapped up. There's one trainer I can trust. I'm going to go in there. I'm going to get it strapped up. I can go. I said, go do your thing. Go take what belongs to you. He went out that practice. He had an interception. He had a pick six on Kirk Cousins and another ball that you dropped for an interception. And it was that day where he became a member of the Washington Redskins. But he made the choice to fight through the pain, and then we find out, 2 years later, he actually played on a fully torn hamstring for almost 2 full years. And you've got people bitching that they can't take the next step in their life. If anybody's tweaked their hamstring, they don't want to walk. Yeah. And you played on it for 2 years, and everything that has happened in this entire story, you guys wouldn't have this relationship if you wouldn't have stepped on that field. Because when you're 7th out of 7 on the depth chart, right? When you're 7 out of 7 and you go in there and say, I got a bad hammy. Taylor, what do? Hey, bro, go ahead and pack your bags and get out of here. We don't have time to worry about you. We're going to get somebody else. And you always fought, man.
Well,
you've always fought.
Thank you.
That was unbelievable.
At Continued Fight. Appreciate you, Wolves. Go out there and be a fucking wolf today. That's all I fucking got, man. BussinWTB.com. Follow, subscribe, rate the pod 5 stars. Go have a tremendous day. And as your dad says, big hugs and the tiniest of kisses.